Welcome to the Madison Miller podcast. Tonight's guest is the host of the Hard Hits show on trying to think. Blog Talk Radio, and that is Derek Brandon Felix. How are you doing on this Monday night?
I'm doing pretty good, man. It's I just want to say I don't think anybody's ever called me by my middle name as well. It's a little unique.
I think I've done that a couple times introducing you on my show. I think I've done it at least 3 or 4 times. I normally do it, and you say the same thing each time, and it's funny.
It is actually, because I actually noticed it for a change.
Yeah, all right. So NHL qualifying round begins on Saturday, August 1st. I want to go through each series and talk about storylines for each series, and I want to hear your predictions for these. I don't have official predictions yet, but I'll probably lean one way or another through a couple of these because I kind of have an idea where I'm going to go, but it's none of these are official yet. I'm going to do my official picks on a separate podcast probably tomorrow night, if not on Wednesday. Let's start in the Eastern Conference. Let's start with a series that I don't think is going to be that good of a series. It's the 5-12 in the East. You have Pittsburgh against Montreal, best of 3 qualifying round. What do you make of this series, and who do you give an edge to?
Well, I mean, it's best of 5, you know. 3 out of 5, kind of like the old NBA.
I am sorry, best of 5, best of 5. I thought it was best.
It's okay. I mean,
best of
the
3.
NHL actually used to have this format, like back in the 80s. And, I mean, and then they switched to best of 7. And the NBA, of course, they did it until, like, maybe 99 or 2000, something like that. They got rid of it a little bit later. But, I mean, this series, I don't know what Crosby's status is for the series. You would think the Penguins would win this series pretty easy, but I got the Pens winning in 4. I think Carey Price will steal a game, and I think the Canadians actually have some players that actually could make it interesting. So it might be closer than you think.
To me, this depends on Crosby. I'm probably picking Pittsburgh regardless of Crosby or no Crosby. They're still a decent team without Crosby, but not as good with Crosby, obviously. Whether Montreal wins a game or not, that's to be determined to me. But they do have some talent. I think Carey Price may be motivated. Pens in 4 is a good call, but to me that's a TBD, but I'm leaning Penguins there. Our series, you have Carolina, your 6 seed, against our beloved New York Rangers, the 11 seed. I think this is going to be a good series.
It's got a chance to be a great series, man. So I think that you got a lot of experience on the Carolina Hurricanes from last year's run that they had. They have some very good forwards that nobody really talks about. Aho, Teravainen, Svechnikov. They Justin Williams, Mr. Clutch himself, is back. We know about him. Jordan Stahl, really good checker. Jacob Slavin, probably one of the best defensemen that nobody talks about. But, the Rangers they've got the best player in the series. So that would be...
That's right. Artemi Panarin.
I think deserves to win the Hart. Zibanejad, they could come at you with 2 scoring lines there because Panarin plays with Strome and Fast, and then you got the KCB line. Defense was supposed to be Carolina's biggest strength, and they're probably not going to have Dougie Hamilton. He's week to week right now, and Brett Pesce was a top 4 defenseman. He's probably the most underrated defenseman. He was a big part of last year, and that's going to hurt them. They're really going to lean heavily on Sammy Vatanen, who they got from the Devils, and also Joel Edmondson, as well as Jacob Slavin. So, as long as the Rangers are healthy, as long as the big guns deliver, and if Tony DeAngelo and Fox do what they should do, I think the Rangers are going to win this series. I think it could go 5 games, but without Hamilton, it could be Rangers in 4.
I think this has a chance to go 5. I'm leaning Rangers because of no Dougie Hamilton, but if Dougie Hamilton plays, that changes a lot for me. But right now, I'm leaning 5 games and probably the Rangers. That is not confirmed yet. I still have some thinking to do on that one. It's all dependent on Dougie Hamilton, obviously. And I think the Rangers have the goaltending edge, too, with Igor Shesterkin as well, so don't forget that.
I was going to actually bring that up. You don't know how he's going to react, obviously. There's been a big layoff. But if he makes the saves that I think he should make, And if he is the goalie, and I believe he is, and I think you believe he is, and many Ranger fans do, I mean, we're looking at a top 5 goalie in the future, a guy who will compete for Vesnas. And I like the fact that I think Eric Luck will probably be the backup because he's got the more experience. So if there's any kind of hiccup, I like the fact. I think it's better to have Lundqvist, who has the playoff experience, to be the backup if they run into an issue. I'm not so sure what's going on from Razek and Reimer there, but Hurricanes are going to have to really do a good job defending, I think, the front of the net if they want to win. Don't forget the Rangers got Kreider back, too.
Oh, yeah. My boy Chris Kreider. He's back. And then I'm surprised you didn't mention Brady Shea for Carolina. He's somebody that's like a random acquisition that they got, and the Rangers have their first-round pick. So, like, that's another subplot.
Interesting storylines. Yeah, you mentioned Brady Shea, and I mean, Brady Shea is going to be relied on, especially if they don't have. They're supposed to not have their Pesci until next fall. He's not going to be ready until September probably, so they'd have to make it far for that to happen. And him and they picked him up. They picked up Vatanen because they needed to get more depth, and they've got a lot of depth on their D. It's just that I'm just not sure. I'm not sure. You have the reverse storyline from the Rangers side where you have Greg McKegg, who actually played a little bit of a mini role when he came in for the Hurricanes last year.
That's right.
Did a good job in a couple of games. And you have Julien Gauthier, too, facing his former team. So it's pretty unique to have that kind of storyline.
Yeah, I love the storyline as well. So the 7-10 series is a series that we saw, or these two teams faced off in the playoffs. I believe it was 4 years ago. The Islanders and the Panthers. The Islanders are your 7. Florida's your 10. Do you remember when John Tavares scored the game series and clinching series OT goal as the Islanders were the wild card? They upset the 1-seed Panthers. It was 2016, I believe.
Before you mentioned it, I honestly had forgotten because so much has happened between then and now, especially when you talk about what's going on now, the pandemic, and what's happening. We're going to get into some baseball later, and John Tavares is now captain Maple Leaf, even though I don't consider him a captain. But it's just strange. It's strange, but I think that has the chance to be a very close series.
Me too.
The Panthers have a lot of high-end talent, and talk about Barkov and Dadonov, and you talk about some of the other guys they have on their defense, like Yandel and Ekblad. And don't forget about Mike Hoffman.
Mike
Hoffman.
Be a
real factor for the Panthers with the Snipes. And they also have some good secondary guys like Noel Akari, who actually was part of the Bruins last year. He scored 20 goals, Akari. So they do have guys like that, and Brian Boyle. And the X factor to me in this series, while it's the Islanders' X guys are Brock Nelson, I would say, Bailey, Lee, Casey Cizikas, those kind of guys. But I really think it comes down to the goalies. So, the Islanders, it's Varlamov probably over Grice because they did pick him up for this. And obviously they're going to get the Russian in next year, Sark, and they'll be able to view all this stuff. And it's going to be really good for the Islanders' future. And how does Bobrovsky perform? We know he had an off year in Florida, and they don't defend all that well. And they play a run and gun style. They always play more of a checking style. You have two proven coaches, but if Bobrovsky is Bobrovsky and he can just have a short memory and the fact that he's had time off to prepare, I kind of leaning towards the Panthers, and I think this will be a 5-game series.
I think this is going to be a 5-game series as well. I don't have a winner yet. I think this is the toughest series to predict of the 4, although Carolina Rangers is hard too for me, and even Toronto Columbus. But Islanders Florida, I think, is the one I'm struggling with the most to pick a winner here. I think it can go either way, and I think some people are underrating the Islanders a little bit. They have a really good defense. That's all I got to say. I think people, including people in their own fan base, I think are underrating this team because they got off to that good start and then they collapsed before the pause, and I think that people are judging them because of how poorly they played before the pause. So I think the Islanders are being a little disrespected here, a little bit.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, Madison, that they are being a little disrespected. I think a lot of that has to do with Matt Barzal. He was really struggling, and it's been supposed to be a contract year. It's the end of his entry-level deal, and he obviously unless they obviously want to sign him to a long-term deal. I don't know. He hasn't really had the kind of season that was expected of him. He's kind of regressed defensively. He got benched a couple of times by Trotz. You talked about underrated in terms of the Islanders' defense. I think the most underrated defenseman on that team is Devin Taves.
I like Devin Taves. He's good.
Yeah, he's the brother of Jonathan. Obviously, he played 4 years of college, and he's a really good. He's just a really good defenseman. He's a good skater. Can contribute offensively. Good defensively. Yeah, I mean, if you were going to give an edge in terms of the defense and the checking, it would go to the Islanders in that series. I think it really depends stylistically on how it's played. And I do think it's going to go 5 games.
Yeah, I think it's going to go 5 games, too. And I think the Islanders have the coaching advantage here with Barry Trotz, too, so you can't forget about that.
I don't want to overlook
I forgot Joe Quenneville's their coach. Oh, my God. Yeah, I, forgot about that.
I know that they were kind of a little bit disappointing this year, but they were starting to play better hockey. They were playing better hockey, towards the end, and they had one more point than the Rangers. They were up to 79, I think, and the Rangers were at 78 points. I'm thinking that maybe it's some of those vets. Maybe it's the Yandles and the Boyles, and maybe a guy like Noel Carey. And they also have another underrated Bruin that can score. Frank Vetrano is another guy. Maybe it's those guys that can make the difference in this series. Whereas, the Islanders have good supporting cast guys like Sekas and as well as Brock Nelson. But Nelson plays top 6. But I'm talking about Matt Martin and Clutterbuck.
Yep.
If Trotz was smart, he would play Kiefer Bellows. I'd like to see Kiefer Bellows
play
in this series because he's got some scoring touch and some finishing ability. And if they're smart, they would use him because they don't have their offense really struggled. And that's why people were down on the Islanders so much.
Yeah, it's more because of their offense than because of the goaltending for sure. The last series of the best-of-5 qualifying round in the East, you have Toronto and Columbus. I love this series. I think the series has a chance to be very good. Who are you leaning towards here?
I think it has a chance to go 5 games, obviously. I think it's a series where you have 2 different styles. You have the more experienced coach and Mr. Tortorella, who we know was up for the Jack Adams award.
Has to be.
I don't expect him to win, but I think that he certainly did a great job. When you think about what they subtracted. Here's the thing, and I look at the 2 goalies actually. I'm going to look at the goalies because you have your boy Elvis.
Yes.
He was a Lincolns who we like a lot, and he could be an X factor. And then on the other side, you have Freddie Anderson, who always faces a lot of shots because Toronto is not the best defensively. I mean, I guess the question I would have, Columbus, do they have enough offensive punch to win the series? They will have a healthy Seth Jones. That's really going to help their defense because it makes the defense a lot stronger. Zach Werenski scored 20 goals, and they played, 69 games or 70 games? And so, maybe you give a little bit of the defensive edge to Columbus and the checking edge. But Toronto, it's going to be tough to stop guys like Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and William Nylander, who nobody talks about. And they have those kind of offensive guys with Tyson Barrie and Riley. I think I probably would lean towards Toronto in a 5th game in a 5-game series if that's how it goes.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm going yet either, but I am intrigued about Columbus, and I think that they could be a dark horse, dangerous team in these Stanley Cup playoffs for sure. Let's move over to the Western Conference. Your first best-of-5, you got the 5-seed Edmonton Oilers against the 12-seed Chicago Blackhawks. Who are you leaning towards there?
Gotta go with the Oilers. They're on home ice. Well, I don't know if they're going to be on the home ice itself because it's a part of the bubble, and Edmonton's got different rinks, obviously. But it's very tough for me to go against the combination there of McDavid and Draisaitl, who probably will win the Hart, even though I think it should go to Panarin in terms of value. But I just think that under the coaching of Tippett, and they seem like they're an improved team. And I also think Nugent Hopkins has had a really good year for the Oilers this year. And Nugent Hopkins is like one of my wild cards in terms of the Oilers, because he's the guy who will draw the tough assignments. He's the guy that also was a first overall pick, and he's the guy who's just very underrated. He's really good at even strength. 55 of his 61 points came in even strength. So actually, am I looking at this right? Actually, yeah, 45. 45? Oh, okay, 37. Yeah. But they do lean heavily on their power play. The Blackhawks do have a lot of guys. They have some guys that can really put the puck in the net.
Absolutely.
You talk about Kane and Taves. You talk about the rookie Dominic Kubalik. And they do have some guys that can put the puck in the net. I just don't think they have enough defense. I don't know about their goaltending. I don't know if Corey Crawford's going to be ready. And I just have to think the Oilers, they're just going to be too skilled. And they have a little more depth. They got guys like Zach Cashin as well, who I think helps them. And I like the Oilers in 4.
I think the Oilers will probably win this series in 4 as well. I do think Chicago's very likely to at least steal one. They're more likely to steal a game or two than Montreal. That's just my opinion. That's because of their experience from the past, and there's going to be a lot of pride there, I think, with the Blackhawks guys, especially from Kane and Taves. So I think they'll probably win a game in this series. But I like Edmonton better as well. I think that McDavid and Draisaitl is too. That's a tough ask for them to get knocked off by the 12 seed Hawks. Nashville and Arizona. That's your 6-11. Nashville's your 6. Arizona's your 11. This is, I think, has a chance to be interesting.
I agree. I think the word that you said there is interesting, and that's kind of how I feel about this series. I was talking about this series the other night on my show, and I was actually just going and just looking into it, and don't forget that Arizona will have a healthy Darcy Kemper. Darcy Kemper, if he had stayed healthy, would have been up for the Vezina probably.
Oh yeah,
Darcy Kemper is really good at stopping the puck. He's turned himself into a quality number 1 goaltender. Obviously, needs to prove himself, and this is the opportunity to do that. And I think, speaking of that, when you talk about the Coyotes, there's another guy that needs to prove something in the playoffs. His name is Taylor Hall, and he obviously has a lot riding on the line. He's a free agent, unrestricted free agent, and the weird offseason will be this fall. So there's some pressure here on him. They do have some young guys on this team, guys like Christian Dvorak, who I like, Clayton Keller. Don't forget they do have Kessel, that should help, along with Ekman Larson and Derek Stepan. So they do have some guys that have been here before. I just don't know if they have enough to beat the Predators, who are a proven team. I do have question marks about the Predators in net, but I look at their defense. When I look at their defense could be the difference in the series. And Arizona's defense is good, but I think Nationals is a little better. I think Nationals got a little more in terms of just guys that should be able to put the puck in the net. So I'm leaning towards Nashville. And maybe this is where Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene come through. Remember, Duchene was delivered big for the Columbus last year, and their shocking sweep of the Lightning.
That's right.
So I'm looking for them. I'm looking for them to come through this series. And you have John Hines behind the bench, so that's interesting in itself against Rick Tocchet. So
that's right.
Interesting coaching matchup. You've got obviously the most underrated defenseman, Roman Josi, and he's up to the Norris. He's not going to win it. They'll probably go to Carlson. You got Ryan Ellis, Matthias Ekholm. He's probably the most underappreciated defenseman. So I think they have a little more in terms of just being able to play a system and win. But I wouldn't be shocked if Kemper stole the series. So I think it goes 5 games. I'm going to probably pick Nashville. just because I think they're a little more experienced.
I'm leaning Nashville too because of the experience. I do like their defense. I think that's the difference in the series. And if Pekka Rinne struggles, they can always go to I think is the best backup goalie in the league, and UC Soros. I love that guy, and he's played in playoff games before too. I won't be shocked if you see two different goalies in the Arizona side too, in case Darcy isn't ready or whatever. I won't be shocked to see Antti Raanta play in the series either. So I'm leaning Nashville too because of their defense and then some of the big names that they have on their roster. And don't forget about Forsberg, Philip Forsberg. I think he's a good playoff player. So I've seen him come up big for the Preds before, especially in that run to the final a few years ago. So I'm probably leaning towards the Preds too. And the other thing I thought about is that it's Taylor Hall versus John Hines, the former Devils Hart Trophy winner, against the former Devils coach.
I didn't even think of that. I was just thinking about how much pressure there probably is on him because he was kind of a disappointment after they picked him up, and he's not the best when it comes to just being defensively responsible. But he should be able to put up points in the series, but he's going to face some pretty tough checking. And that's the one thing about the Predators, even though they made the change in coaches, they've got guys that know how to check, and the fact that they have those kind of guys. You mentioned Forsberg, I'll mention Victor Arvidsson because Arvidsson had kind of a disappointing regular season, but he knows where to go. He knows how to score goals. So, yeah, I mean that storyline in itself, Hall facing his former coach, is very interesting because he won the Hart under him.
Yep. Yeah, I just thought of that randomly. Vancouver, Minnesota, I think is another interesting series. Vancouver's the 7, Minnesota's the 10. Vancouver was a surprise team this season that I really wasn't sure about coming into the year. And Minnesota was a surprise team as well. I didn't think that they would be as surprisingly decent as they are, too. What do you make of that series?
I feel like I was leaning towards Vancouver early, but I really started thinking about the defense that Minnesota has. I know Sarah McClellan covers them. Friends with her, I've read some of her articles, and I started thinking about some of the players they have, and it's not so much that they have the advantage up front. I think you have to give the edge obviously to the Canucks. Elias Persson, the former Calder winner, and Brock Besser, if he is healthy and comes back, and Bo Horvat, and of course Quinn Hughes on that defense, and Alex Edler. So I think they do get the edge there. It's just when you start looking at the Wild and you look at what's on their blue line, Suter obviously is the proven guy. Then you've got Matt Dumba, who's healthy and he can really put the puck in the net. Spurgeon. They have a really good defense. So I think this is going to be a real close series. It's going to be closer probably than I thought. Kevin Fiala, that was a great trade by them. I don't know why Nashville gave up on him, but they did, and they're going to probably regret that.
I agree.
Zuccarello and Parisi obviously are proven guys along with Eric Stahl. Maybe it comes down to the goalies. The Wild don't know who their number one goalie is going to be. It could be Stalock, who took over for Dubnyk. It could be Kalkinen, who was competing for the job. I probably think they would lean towards Stalock, unless Dubnyk is ready, because Stalock had the good year. I don't really know what direction they're going to go. Maybe for that reason, because I do think that the Canucks have a little bit a better goalie. I guess I'm going to lean towards the Canucks, and I'll go 5 games.
I'm leaning Canucks as well. It's because of the guys they have up front with Pettersson and Brock Besser and Bo Horvat. And don't forget former Ranger G.T. Miller's there as well.
Forgot about him.
Better goalie. If Dubnyk was there, I might be leaning Minnesota because I've always been a Dubnyk fan. And I thought he pulled a lot of games out of his asses through the years with Minnesota. So I'm leaning Vancouver for now, but I might consider Minnesota if it's Dubnyk because I've always liked Devin Dubnyk, and they have a good defense as well with guys like Matt Dumba and all those guys down in Minnesota. Last series out west is Calgary-Winnipeg. This is my favorite series in the West. 8-9,
Okay.
Canada series. Who do you like there?
I like Winnipeg. I think it'll be really close. I think that there's a very simple skill set between these two teams when you talk about the forwards, especially, Calgary. They have Sean Monahan and they have Johnny Gaudreau, but they also have a guy that I love, Mr. Agitator himself, Matthew Tkachuk. And in a series like this, maybe he can be an X factor. I mean, he always seems to drive opponents nuts. I mean, look at what happened with Edmonton. So he'll be a little bit of a factor. They do have some good secondary scorers as well on that team. Winnipeg, I like their core. I like the fact that they have Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele leading it. Those guys are proven performers. And then you have Kyle Connor, who's getting better and better, and you have Patrick Laine. I think the Calgary defense might be a little better, but I keep looking at the goaltending situation, and I think Calgary's probably going to have to go with Talbot because Talbot was playing. My boy Talbot was playing a little better down the stretch, and Connor Hellebuyck probably deserves to win the best. And if Hellebuyck can make the saves that I think he can, then I think Winnipeg prevails in 5.
I definitely think this is going 5. This is my toughest call, the West. I don't know where I'm leading yet. I like Winnipeg's offense better, and I like their goaltending better. I like Connor Hellebuyck. But Calgary has... You don't like Connor Hellebuyck?
No, I said I do.
Oh, you do like Connor Hellebuyck. But Calgary have questions in net. I like their defense. I like the guy that they got in the Hamilton deal, Noah Hannafin. I like... Mark Giordano. I like Johnny Gaudreau. I like some of their pieces offensively. I like their defense. I don't like their goaltending. I love Winnipeg's offense. I do not love Winnipeg's defense, but I love Connor Hellebuyck. I don't know where I'm going with this. But if anything, I'm probably leaning Winnipeg. I'm with you on Winnipeg for now, but I don't feel so strongly about it. So let's talk about some of the lottery teams that didn't make this playoff. Let's start off with our friend Brian Sanborn's Buffalo Sabres, who are making some changes this offseason. Jack Eichel, who has not made the playoffs yet, surprisingly. What do you think is up with the Sabres and their offseason plans?
They have a lot of capital. In terms of some of the changes they made, I don't know. I've never seen a organization, fire as many people as they fired. It's really strange to me. And I don't know what deal is there with their ownership, but I do have question marks. I mean, you have a new general manager in Kevin Adams, a former NHL player. He was a gritty player. He was a kind of like a checking center that played for both the Maple Leafs and the Hurricanes. So, he's been around, but I just don't understand why, they just made him the GM, when he didn't really have the experience. Why did they interview other candidates? It's kind of surprising to me. And, one of the things that, I think we just totally forgot to mention, but I think I have to mention it, is what happened recently with the Coyotes with their general manager who just quit.
Oh, yeah.
Jacob Chaika. Yeah, I mean, that kind of came out of left field. He just quits. I mean, John Chaika. And he just decides to quit or whatever. And then there's all this talk, well, maybe there was talk with the Sabres or the Devils, and I don't know. But, just a reminder to all those people who think it's so easy to just hire a young guy. He was their GM, I think, for 3 years. This was his 4th year. So they had missed the playoffs the previous 3 years. And I do think he did a good job rebuilding Arizona. But I definitely wouldn't have given up what they gave up to Taylor Hall. But maybe hiring someone with that kind of experience who's just in town, Linux, maybe that's not the way to go. So, and I'm only just tying this with Buffalo because I think they might have had some interest in him.
Interesting, yeah. So the Sabres, I think, are a team that's under a lot of pressure this offseason in hockey. Let's talk about another Eastern Conference team that is not in the postseason, and that is the New Jersey Devils, who hired a new coach in Lindy Ruff. I can't believe they hired Lindy Ruff. Our friend Robert Davis is a big Devils fan, as we know. What do you think their offseason plans are?
Okay, so here, I'll just start off first with why they hired Lindy Ruff. They hired him because the guy they wanted priced himself out, according to George Brewer. That's not really a surprise. It's not a shock. We're talking about Gerard Gallant. That's the guy, of course, that I would have hired, but Gallant probably didn't want the Devil job.
Right.
And I think that he probably wants, we talked about this a little bit on Bruce Show the other night, and I think he probably wants to coach the Detroit Red Wings, and that job's not available right now. He does have a relationship with Steve Yzerman. They played together back in the early 90s, and Gallant was pretty tough as nails. So he was probably just going to wait to see what comes available, maybe, because there could be a couple of other jobs that just might be a little better for him in terms of what happens. So in terms of Ruff, you can't question what he's done as a coach. He's worked with young teams before, especially the Sabres. Took over for Ted Nolan and did a great job there. They're a young team. They're kind of building around Jack Hughes. They picked up the defenseman in the Arizona trade, who should have a bright future. I don't know when he'll arrive, but he's supposed to be a real key to their success. They've got another. What have they got? The 7th or 8th pick in the draft. So, maybe they decide to take the Russian goalie. The Sabres might decide to take him too. I think those are two teams that could take the Russian goalie because he's pretty highly rated.
Yep.
It's a building process. I think Fitzgerald did a great job in terms of what he got back for Taylor Hall.
Me too.
And what he got back for Blake Coleman. So it's going to take a while. But they do have Mike Zajac coming off the books next year. So they will get younger, which means they need to they need Pavel Zacha to contribute a little more. I think he's capable of contributing more. I've watched him enough. He's pretty good shorthanded. I don't see why he can't be better even strength and become like a little bit better in terms of production. Why can't he be like a guy that scores 15 goals and puts up between 40 and 50 points? I think that's something that he should be able to do. Jesper Bratt being another guy that they have there. Defense is a little bit of a question mark. Subban is still there. I'm sure they would love to get rid of his salary, but I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's pretty much untradeable at this point. Butcher is a guy that they really need to continue to develop. He had that really good rookie year, and then he's becoming more of a two-way defenseman. And Severson is more of an offensive type defenseman. His defense is pretty bad. So they've got a lot of work to do in terms of what they're going to go. And Ruff can help them in terms of development. He won't be there too long, I don't think. But I think he can help them develop. And Fitzgerald deserved the job as GM.
I believe that Fitzgerald deserved the job as well. And I'm happy that he got that job because he got a lot back for Blake Coleman and for Taylor Hall. And Lindy Ruff should be interesting. He was a good coach with the Sabres. I was just surprised that he got the Devil job. But you're right. I think that Gerard Gallant didn't want the Devil's job, and I think he wants the Red Wings job. But for some reason, they just haven't fired Blashill yet. So that's just weird to me. Let's go to the...
It is weird. I have no idea what the thinking is, but Yzerman, and again, Yzerman's pretty... That was Yzerman's call, probably. So Yzerman certainly proved enough as a general manager where it's really hard to question him.
Yeah. Let's go to the West and talk about two teams out West before we move on to our little rapid-fire segment. The two teams out in California, or there's three teams out in California that did not make this hockey restart playoffs. Two that intrigue me a lot going into the offseason are the Kings and the Sharks. Oh, the Ducks do too, but the Kings and the Sharks have teams that have a lot of veterans. Obviously, the Kings with Quick and with Kopitar and with Doughty, and then the Sharks on the other side with like Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson and guys like that and Marlowe. Do you think those two teams are going to eventually blow it up and rebuild, or do you think that those two teams are in play to trade their draft picks and go for the one last hurrah.
Here's what I'm going to say about that. I think the Sharks made their bed, obviously. And I understood it to a point because of what they gave up to get Erik Karlsson, but I just didn't understand signing him to a long-term deal. He's never going to be the same in terms of his defense. So, I mean, he'll still be obviously putting points, and he's still terrific at that. But, I mean, he's going to be on the wrong side, and Brett Burns was showing signs of slowing down finally. And Marlowe, isn't Marlowe with the Penguins? I think he is with the Penguins actually now. But, I mean, Thornton, he could retire. But I think that the Kings, they're kind of set up better for the future. They've drafted really well recently.
That's true.
So when you talk about, if you start looking at their farm system, they've got a lot of like really good players in their farm system. So if we look at the Kings, and like Alex Turcotte is very highly rated. You also have Rasmus Kupari, we've seen him play for Finland, which is pretty good. Gabriel Velarde, who came up and put up 7 points in his first 10 games. If the kid from Staten Island, believe it or not, Arthur Kaliev. Arthur Kaliev's not the best skater, but he was a big finisher in the AHL, and not the AHL, but the OHL. That's right. So if he can figure it out, maybe a guy like Luke Robitaille can help him, and he figures out the skating part of it and can stick. They should be able to. They're going to improve. They're going to take time, but they should show some improvement based on some of the guys that they've drafted and some of the guys that they've acquired. So I think the Sharks are going to be a basement team for a while.
Oh, me too.
I just don't think they have enough there, and the goaltending is really falling apart.
Yeah, I think the Kings are better set up for the future than the Sharks. And I think the Ducks are set up better for the future than the Sharks as well. The Sharks kind of remind me of the LA Rams, like in the sense that they went for and gave up a lot of pieces to get something. Like in the Rams case, it's Jalen Ramsey. And we can get right into the rapid fire segment with the Jets trading of Jamal Adams and how I feel that Seattle gave up too much for Jamal Adams and how they're going for like that kick at the can thing in a weird way. I think the Sharks have kind of fell into that boat as well, and potentially Nashville down the road if they don't succeed in these playoffs as well, because obviously they signed Duchesne and they feel like a team that's windows closing as well. And speaking of like that analogy I made, let's talk about that trade. Let's go to the rapid fire segment. We'll talk about the Jets trading Jamal Adams first. What do you make of the package they got? 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and another safety.
I think they did real well.
Me too.
Honestly, with the trade, I mean, I just think it's addition by subtraction. You know, we saw this last year, unfortunately, with Odell Beckham. But that was a different situation. And I'll explain that. Is that Odell plays wide receiver, he played through injuries, and I think the injuries and the fact that he was so outspoken, it probably decreased his value a little bit. Maybe that's why the Giants, and don't forget his contract, that's why the Giants were only able to get the 1 first-round pick. So I think that's why when they got what they got back, I actually thought it was a good package. So I think that because of that, it's basically a good trade for the Jets. But what if they had traded him? And this is what I'm thinking. What if they had traded him in the draft? What if they had traded him at the draft? They probably could have done even better. Maybe gotten a wide receiver. Something that I was listening to Benigno talk about Benigno and Roberts today.
Yeah.
And they could have used a receiver. So, and from Seattle's standpoint, and I can understand why you would want to add a really good safety in Jamal Adams. He's 24 years old. He's one of the best safeties in the league. So, I just don't, you know what it is? Like, I just got a question, like, how many more great years does Russell Wilson have left? How much more time is going to carry that team? You know, they still got Pete Carroll, but he's getting older. And do you really have enough to get through that conference? I mean, you don't know. And Adams is kind of a moany player, so there's no guarantee that he'll be signed in the 2 years after his rookie contract's up. So they took a risk. they took a risk. They're taking a kick at one more kick at the can, like you said. And from the Jets standpoint, they weren't going to do better at this point. They needed to get rid of him.
Absolutely. I think the Jets did great in the deal, and I think for Seattle it was good too. But my worry is that they're going to become, in a year from now, what the Rams are right now, as looked upon as a dumpster fire with a lot of bad contracts But in the case for the Rams, Jared Goff is worse than Russell Wilson, and the case for Seattle, like, surviving this is Russell Wilson and his ability to continue to be great. I believe in Russell Wilson. I don't believe in Jared Goff being great. I believe in Russell Wilson being great. So I think this Jamal Adams thing has a chance to work out for Seattle. And you made a good point with the Jets potentially could have gotten a wideout. I think that they should have done a trade with the Cowboys and gotten, before the draft, the 17th pick, and maybe they would have had CeeDee Lamb for Sam Darnold, and that would have been like a great what if. Or let's say they wait a year and they trade Adams in 2021 to the Cowboys. Maybe they get Amari Cooper in a first round pick, and then the Cowboys would eventually turn CeeDee Lamb into their number one option. So that's a fun little what if for the Jets there. But they still did good in that trade, I thought.
They did as good as they possibly could have done. And I think they just didn't want to trade him to the Cowboys. They didn't want to give them to Adams. That's probably part of it. There was probably some stubbornness, and they probably were still hoping that things would work out. But who knows? Maybe he's right about the coach. I mean, who knows? It wasn't the greatest hire. But again, only time will tell.
Yeah, I think that they didn't want to trade him to the Cowboys. Like, it's like a random team like trading somebody to the Yankees or to the Lakers. Like, oh, we don't want to trade him to this team because it's like the weird jealousy, animosity thing that it's like the Yankees, the Cowboys, and the Lakers have this in common, I feel like. And even there's some other teams, I think, too. Maybe the Canadians or even the Rangers in hockey in a way. But yeah, I think that both teams did that trade very well, especially the Jets getting the 2 first-rounders. The big story of today was Major League Baseball, the Marlins corona cases going up with, I believe it was 13 total between the coaches and the players combined. Both of us thought that the season was in jeopardy this morning, but they're playing right now as I'm watching the Mets up 7-2, bouncing back from that bad loss against the Braves into a 7-2 lead tonight against the Red Sox. So it looks like baseball's going to go on with this. And hey, what do you make of this?
Look, we made a choice. A lot more to stop it than what happened with the Marlins. I think obviously it may be a little too much criticism for Don Mattingly and maybe not enough criticism from Major League Baseball because they should have called off that game. You can't let a team that had 4, there were already 4 that were positive before yesterday's game. They shouldn't have played. That's the bottom line. And because of that, the Yankees, Phillies were canceled tonight, and they're likely going to be canceled tomorrow because he can't take any chances. So they got to make sure that these players everybody's tested on the Phillies. They got to make sure everything is good. And they got to make sure they clean up that dugout. So they got to do the best they can do right now. It is what it is. This is the risk when you bring back sports, and especially when these players are traveling and they're in the dugouts, and some of them are in their masks and some of them aren't. I do see a lot of players wear them though, and that's pretty interesting. It's tough to do, obviously, and some of them are even hitting home runs with the masks on. But then again, there's not a lot of social distancing. It's pretty tough unless you have a good chunk of players stay in the locker room. It's tough. It's a tough thing. It's a tough thing. And as far as the Red Sox go, the Red Sox just don't have any pitching. They went with bullpen and they went with some scrubs. So I knew the Mets were going to get well against them. The Red Sox have no pitching, and they got this issue with Eduardo Rodriguez with his heart from the COVID-19. And it's just crazy. I was reading about that. And it's no joke. You got to hope for the best. And you can't, and Major League Baseball should have done a better job.
I agree. Major League Baseball should have done a better job, and Don Mattingly, I think, got too much hate for this. I feel bad for Donnie Baseball. He did not deserve that hate from the media and how everybody's pointing to him. He did not deserve that at all.
And they won.
And they won, too, against Joe Girardi's Phillies.
It's the same old Phillies, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
just when you think, they'll maybe bring in Girardi, they'll work out. They lose 2 of 3 to the Marlins.
Yeah, they lost Friday and Sunday.
They played 2 of 3, right? It was 2 of 3 because that's right. Today's Monday, so they lost 2 of 3 to them.
Yeah, they did lose 2
out
of.
Probably have Tony DeAngelo tweeting about how they can't beat the Phillies. The Phillies can't beat the Marlins again because Tony D is a big
Phillies fan. I saw him tweeting on Friday night.
Big Eagles and a big Phillies guy, and those are the kind of games you have to win. So, especially when you look at that division and you look at what if this thing does come off. Remember 8 teams make it. And so the Phillies could be battling with teams like the Padres, who I picked actually this weekend over them. They could be battling with teams like the Brewers.
I like the Padres. I think the Padres are pretty good. I was watching them on TV before against the Diamondbacks. They looked pretty good today. I think they won, right? 6-2. They're up like 6 or 7-2 when I left the house this evening.
I watched the end of it. It was the final score was 6-2.
6-2 Padres. Yes, I was right.
Yeah. What was it closer?
Let's see. Did Yates pitch? I'm looking right now, but maybe he came in for the 9th. No, they did not pitch Yates. Well, it was a 4-run game. Stratman closed out the game for San Diego today.
Yeah, I thought I was losing it for a second because I decided to step out on my porch and it's so steamy out here that it feels like I am losing my mind. So, but the amazing thing is, like, you look at the Diamondbacks and the fact that they were able to get and steal Ketel Marte. He's like he's a superstar, basically. He's basically
I love
a superstar.
him.
This guy played shortstop. He played center field last year. Now he's playing second base. I mean, that guy will be a superstar for a long time, that trade they made with Seattle. It wasn't that it was such a terrible trade for Seattle, but I just don't think I would have traded Ketel Marte. But the Diamondbacks are another team, and I think you talked about them. They should be good. They should be a good team this year as well.
I love the Diamondbacks. I love the Bumgarner pickup. I'm pro Bumgarner. I've stated that for years how much I love Madison Bumgarner. Maybe because he has my name, but I love Madison Bumgarner, and he's a gamer, and I think he'll help that team too. And Ketel Marte's awesome. And it's funny because 2 years ago, we thought that Seattle won that trade because of Mitch Haniger. It was 2 years ago. We were all glowing about Mitch Haniger. Oh, Seattle, they robbed the Diamondbacks. Tajon Walker's hurt. And that kid, Mitch Haniger's a superstar. Oh, take that back. That guy's hurt from Seattle, and now Marte's become an absolute star. So I think that trade is still up in the air, but I'm leaning Diamondbacks on that trade. But I think that'll turn out to be a win-win if Mitch Haniger turns into his old self. Some Knicks news from the weekend. They hired Tom Thibodeau. You and I were mixed about the hire. I think that they could have done a lot worse. I was very worried that they were going to hire Jason Kidd, who I cannot stand, and I thought did awful with Brooklyn and awful with Milwaukee. And it turned out that the New York Daily News was fake news, and Tom Thibodeau gets the job. I'm okay with the hire. I talked myself into it a little bit. I just wanted Kenny Atkinson so bad. But the weird thing is that I was relieved that it was Thibodeau, because it was just because I was so worried about it being Jason Kidd. So, do you think that Thibodeau was not the worst hire, to put it kindly?
I've come around on it. The only thing I always worry about with him, is just, he's going to run his team into the ground. But then, again, it's just the Knicks. So, it's not a veteran team. It's a younger team. If there's a benefit to hiring him, look, he's a no-nonsense guy. He wants his guys to play hard all the time, hustle. And, haven't we wanted to see that from Knicks forever, with the exception of when Woodson coached him, and now Woodson might become an assistant. So I'm not sure how I feel about putting together a coaching staff that way. But if that's what they decide to do, that's what they decide to do. I guess you just have to, I hate saying this word because I've gotten tired of this word, trust the process. But, maybe he can get the most. He could get the most out of R.J. Barrett and really help him become more consistent. Maybe he could find something. Maybe he can drill it into Kevin Knox about when he's supposed to shoot, and that he can actually grab rebounds and actually play up to his potential. So maybe from that standpoint, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe this guy is a proven winner. This guy was an assistant on the Knicks during that time. He was an assistant with the Celtics when they won their championship and went to 2 finals. This guy has been there and done that. And with the exception of Julius Randle, who I expect to get traded because I'm sure Thibodeau will not like him at all. I mean, maybe this is going to work out better than I thought about, and this will be, the other thing about Tom is that this is probably his last ride. I mean, he's 62, and they give him a 5-year contract, right?
Yeah.
So, look, the Knicks need something. Getting an established guy like that, he probably wanted the job, probably wanted to come to New York. He's been here before, and I mean, I think Thibodeau's got a little something to prove. He should have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder.
I think he will too.
And you know what? We talk about Karl Anthony Towns and how talented he is, but you're right about him. He doesn't play any defense, and Wiggins is an underachiever. JPG's right about him too, and Butler. I could see why Butler didn't want to stick around. So we'll see how he does with the Knicks. So it'll be interesting. They'll be interesting to watch, at least from that standpoint.
Yeah, to me, Thibodeau, the league may have passed him by, but at the same time, I feel like he got a raw deal with Minnesota because I think the league and the media and us fans have overrated Karl Anthony Towns from a standpoint. Like, he's a great offensive player, but like we said, he doesn't play any defense. To me, Jimmy Butler just wanted out of Minnesota because the Timberwolves are dysfunctional and he didn't like Towns and Wiggins. I don't think that had to do with Thibodeau at all. I know people are pointing at that, but don't forget, Butler was developed by Thibodeau. Thibodeau gets zero credit for developing Jimmy Butler in Chicago. I think that just flew under the radar. And I'm a big Jimmy Butler fan. I've always loved Jimmy Butler. So that's another Tom Thibodeau that's in his favor, developing Jimmy Butler into the star he is today. Before we go, promote your show.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's funny. I was probably going to do just a short podcast, probably 11 o'clock hour myself tonight. So Hard Hits Network, that's over on Block Talk Radio. It's really Hard Hits. It's Hard Hits Network, and basically, it's kind of like your show, but you do more interviews, and I think that's a great thing that you're doing. I kind of bring people in, whether it's you or it's Dan Wheeler or it's Rob Craze Davis with his very interesting opinions.
Yep.
I don't know, why do I get the feeling that Lindy Ruff and the Devils might change his mind? I don't know, maybe change his mind. But, it's a fun show. It's a fun show. I mean, we have fun. It's kind of like George's show a little bit. Although George has a lot more stories. I mean, I could tell stories, too, going back to my ESPN days as well. But, George knows people, and he's got contacts, and that's pretty cool. But, my show, mine will be probably mostly on the Knicks hire Thibodeau and why it's good, and Jamal Adams and the trade, and I'll probably give some more thoughts there. And I will have to talk about what happened with the baseball, with the Marlins and this outbreak, and so I'll probably be talking about those three things. The hockey I'll probably do a little later in the week. I usually do about 4 shows a week, so I mean, it depends. I mean, I could probably do 5. I've been doing a lot of shows lately, so
you have been.
And I could do 60 minutes, I could do 90 minutes, I could do 120 minutes. We also have overtime. We could do 15, 30 and have a 30-minute overtime. So it's fun. It's just a fun show that I've done, on and off since 2000 and maybe 7 or 8. So thanks for letting me come on again. And you're always welcome, obviously, to be part of our show as well. So it's great. It's a great time.
Yes, it's always a pleasure to have you on, Derek, and you know that. You and all of our crazy friends, such as Brian Samward, George Brew, Dan Wheeler, you name it, they are always a joy to have fun with, whether it's on your show, my show, or What's Brewing. And they're all great with their thoughts and whatnot. And as much as we sometimes argue and joke around, we're always a good time together. And who knows, maybe I'll pop on your show at some point this week. I have a lot going on, so maybe at the end of the week when things are busy. Or things are not busy.
I mean, Brian, Mr. Retirement, unretired and came up to my show because we actually got the return of Nate Suso last Friday. And that was unexpected because he's a cop. And so he's doing a great job out there in California. So Brian unretired and he stayed on our show. So you just never know what's going to happen.
You just never know what's going to happen. And I'll talk to you probably tomorrow or whatever, later. Who knows?
Hey, you have a great night, and it was a lot of fun doing this again. Thanks a lot, Madison, for having me.
Of